Let's start with the fire. It's been cold the last couple of days that I've worked. Get a day off, want to make a video, including the fire, and it's 3,000 degrees outside. We're going to make this fire anyway. I'm going to show you my secret weapon. Check this out. So I'm making a specific kind of fire, and let me show you what we're going to do. This fire is awesome because it burns like a candle. I have cotton balls that I've infused with Vaseline. We're going to put it right on the top of that. I'm going to show you what happens. Here we go. It's going to be awesome. So you're probably wondering, why am I starting a fire, showing you how to make a fire, when this video has nothing to do with fire? I would argue that this video has everything to do with fire. Like, it burns very slowly. It takes planning, it takes diligence, and it has a great base, like a foundation. Look at this. This is only like 3 or 4 minutes in. And this is not something that I'm going to use if I need immediate warmth. If I'm looking for a quickie, let's say. This is the kind of fire that I build if I'm going to be out here a long time and I want to make provisions like this. I ain't going to build this if I need to get warm in 10 minutes. Because at the end of the 10 minutes, things dissipate. Heat goes away. It burns really hot, really fast, and then it fades. This kind of fire doesn't do that. This lasts a long time. But it takes a lot of effort. It took effort to cut all this wood. It took effort to put it all together, kind of like this video. It took effort, and that's the reason it is emblematic of a relationship, and why sometimes relationships don't last. Because if relationship is all about the heat of the moment and getting that next fix, that we don't start most relationships unless we want them to last. Because unless we just want that quick little bit of fun and, you know, wham bam, thank you ma'am. Otherwise, the idea is that, okay, well, I'm going to get in this venture for the long haul. In other words, I don't go into this with the hope to be heartbroken in 6 to 8 months. And in order to ensure that that happens, we want to be the best version of ourselves so that we have the best likelihood of attracting a mate. I guess we're kind of like a peacock. When we want to be the best version of ourselves, sometimes we are what the hip kids would call inauthentic. We put on a mask to optimize the likelihood of someone finding us attractive. We keep this mask on a heck of a long time. Within the first 6 months, this mask may start to slide off a little bit, and because it's really hard to keep up with an appearance, like an optimal version of yourself. By the end of that first year, it's like, I've got to hold my mask on. I've got to adjust it. And the person that you're with is like trying to adjust theirs at the same time. They're like, I don't even know who. This doesn't seem like the person that I signed up for. Like, we didn't have any of these issues when we first started being interested. It's like the first little bit had so much heat and so much passion. Where's that gone? And why are you behaving so radically different? Meanwhile, the person that's saying that is behaving so radically different in your eyes. You're like, who the tit? Who is this? I don't know who you are. This ain't what I signed up for either. My friends, this creates a big dilemma. The need to belong is ingrained in us so deeply and so strongly. We're willing to create whatever kind of facade we need to in order to gain other people's acceptance. Sometimes at the behest of morality. Sometimes at the behest of being genuine at all to ourselves or others. We want to feel good. We want to be accepted. We want to get complimented. We want these things. Everybody likes to feel good about themselves. That's not mysterious. And neither is it mysterious that we like to get complimented from people that otherwise may not have complimented us. We're under this illusion that things are so mysterious, when in fact, most of these things are not mysterious at all. We just don't want to have the audacity to say that they're not mysterious. In this sense, enjoying the flirt is less strange than we would like to admit. And after a while, we've been in this relationship for a long time, and it seems kind of static, kind of boring, too predictable. And like there's no joy, there's no fun. In other words, we get all the responsibility without any of the pleasure. If we don't have just a little bit of healthy tension with our partners, then things become flat. Things become boring, static, predictable, no fun, and easy to blame your partner, your spouse, whatever, and look elsewhere because you want some fun in your life. You add that to someone sitting from the desk across from you. Which, by the way, it's interesting because we tend to spend more time with people at work than we do with our own family. You couple that with people at work giving you more attention, or a different kind of attention, or a novel attention. Let's talk about novelty for a second. You know how dogs sniff new stimuli? They want to figure it out. It's like they want to figure it out, and they want to kind of lay claim to it, if I'm honest with you. I'm not saying that we sniff all the stuff and want to lay claim to all the stuff. I hope not. I hope you're not going around sniffing things. We are, just as a species, attracted to novelty, and we like to stay stimulated. Not too much stimulation, but enough to make us feel good about ourselves. We like the shiny new thing. Why do you think people are addicted to Amazon? It's like they're trying to get stuff that they need and they want, but they're also trying to probably fill some hole in their life. Sometimes being in a relationship for a long period of time that doesn't seem to be growing or any of that, we want to find a way to go beyond the status quo, the boring, the flat, the big old cup of no fun at all. We want to look at ourselves and say, we're capable of more. The person across from us, at work, the gym, some weird local restaurant, like it doesn't really matter. If we receive positive attention from someone that we have not had reason to receive a positive attention from, like it's an intrinsic boost of confidence. You're so smart. You're funny. You inspire me. Jeans look good. Oh, wow. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. We are eager to complicate things in our life in dramatic fashion. And it's all just chasing that joy, that fun that we're missing, or that we think we can't have at home. So when we are unhappy or do not feel self-enriched, or that our relationship is enriched, or it is going nowhere, it's like the adage, desperate time and desperate measures, or something like that. We will do whatever it takes, no matter what we wreck in the process. Let's check this fire out. So in the midst of all this unhappiness, we will conspire against ourselves. Yep. We will find this person at work, at the gym, at a restaurant, doesn't matter. Baseball game, who cares? To get that validation that we've been craving for the last little while. That person that will whisper sweet nothings in our ear. A person with the willingness to make things hot for a second. Ain't had that in a while. A person who can make us laugh and all this stuff. Feels good to feel good. We're willing to self-heal in ways that are radically different than the way we see ourselves. Think about that for a second. So we see ourselves as a good moral character, right? We see ourselves as someone who loves people and cares about her kids and their wife or her husband, and we like to think of ourselves as all right. On the other hand, we're banging whoever at work and taking the happiness from that fake relationship home, right, to basically transplant the unhappiness that we're getting at home. Like a good moral character that we are. It's an interesting dichotomy because people, and I really mean this, it's really important to grasp this, don't see themselves as bad. People generally, I find it actually impossible that people can believe that they're wrong on purpose. That seems to be a fundamental attribute of the human condition. For the sake of it, let's assume that that's true. We have people that are behaving very badly, right? They have decided that they need some fire in their life, some excitement to get away from the mundane relationship that they have with their spouse and cheat. It's really easy to slide into this thing, this fake relationship, right? You're getting all these compliments and you see yourself as the GOAT. I mean, not only do you have one person giving you the googly eyes, but maybe you've got two or three. Man, and you slide into this thing because you recognize the brokenness of the relationship you have at home with your wife or your husband. This thing isn't. This thing that you're willing to dabble in, it's not broken. It doesn't need fixing. There's nowhere to go but up. It's going to be fun, 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 fun. And you get all the fun, you're not really going to have to bear any of the responsibility. It's not right now. What I mean by this, to say that it's not broken, like you have, your relationship at home is just, I mean, it could be anything from boring to turmoil. Like, it could be bad. It could be something that's just, God, it could even be dangerous. There's just so much uneasy tension that you have to deal with minute to minute. Or maybe you are demanding attention because you're getting no attention. This new thing, you're getting all the attention in the world, baby. You have it all. This person eats from the palm of your hand. They're willing to go out of the way. You don't gotta go against the grain. There's nothing to fix. And it's easier to go with the grain than against the grain. Like, people are always going to choose the easier path. Well, I shouldn't say always, but they have a tendency because people don't like difficult things. We try to avoid difficulty at all costs. Even when difficulty may ensure that we don't lose our kids. So let's talk about the cognitive dissonance of the cheater. They see themselves as a moral character, as someone who is incapable of doing something wrong. Maybe they don't see themselves that. Maybe their ego isn't that big. But they think highly of themselves. They think that they are genuinely good, that they tend to make good decisions. And yet, they do have to face the fact that they are not making a good decision right now because they're probably going to ruin their life. No matter how much fun they've had. Fun, 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 fun. Nothing fun about divorce court. So they wrestle with the way that they see themselves. Is that in any shape or form the way the rest of the world sees them? Or are you wrong? And are you willing to humble yourself to say that there might be a chance for me to be wrong? Like at some point they're like, hey, this thing, I can't keep this up. This is not good. Sometimes cheaters will just have a one-nighter and just not even look back. Sometimes they will. Habitual cheaters have done this so much that they have practiced this to where they have almost lost consciousness altogether. Like it's such a habitual pattern that they can do it and sleep just fine and not have a bit of issue with it. I'll talk more about that in a second. A lot of times, people who are not habitual cheaters, when they're just trying to escape the untenable condition at home, what these people will do is really wrestle with themselves. They will wrestle with that version of themselves they believe to exist versus the version of themselves that is currently existing. This goes on for a while, and maybe months goes by, maybe even a year. But interestingly, at the end of that year, a couple things happen. One, they've got to reconcile the moral dilemma. Is this who I thought I was? Now, probably this has been going on for a long time. Maybe right at the very beginning, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just done that. I can't believe that I just fell into that temptation. It was fun. Maybe they even have to do it again to become a little bit more numb to it. Because this is bonkers, but it's true. Maybe they have to do it again to become a little bit more numb with it so that they can actually obtain any joy from the experience. Because fundamentally, this experience gives them more joy than they're getting at home. But they're not able to really deal with the fact that they have to see themselves as a bad person. So they feel really bad about it. But the next time they do it, they feel less bad about it. And then the next time they do it, they feel less bad about it again. Like, I think there is a difference between the broken and someone who just decides to habitually cheat. Like, some people are really broken, and because they're broken, they're just in survival mode, and they just require affirmation in every facet of life from anybody who will give it to them, and as a consequence of that, they'll do whatever it takes to receive that constant validation. On the other hand, some people, it's not just that. It's like they're broken right now without any ability to see something good in the future. So they're willing to screw up. They're willing to make a sacrifice, a bad one, because of the apathy that they're experiencing right now. Apathy does bad things to a person. Like, rarely does something good come from apathy. It really shorts the circuit on good decision making. It's like trauma plus boredom plus low self-esteem plus positive attention from someone else likely equals disaster. Like, one of the things about emotions, being an emotional creature, it's like our limbic system, our lizard brain, it's always going to mean more to us than our reasoning centers, our prefrontal brain, right? Like, there's always going to be a stronger emotional response than a cognitive one. In other words, the amygdalic processes are always going to supersede the prefrontal ones. Or some such science. Maybe I'll make a video on that. This may go on for months. Because at some point they're going to want to end it. They're going to want to end the fake relationship and just return home. Because there's a couple of things going on. One is the inability to reconcile themselves, the way they see themselves versus who they are actually being, at least their behaviors. More on behaviors being indicative of the self in a second too. But they also have the element of fear. What if the spouse finds out? What is going to happen? In these cases, sometimes the cheater will keep friends close but enemies closer. Because heaven forbid they make the enemy mad and the spouse and the enemy contact the spouse and the spouse find out. Oh boy. Can't have that. So in every way possible, they will want to reduce the likelihood that the spouse is ever going to find out, because that would be just unimaginable, the hell that would cause. So they're like, I got to get out of this thing. What do I do? And they make moves toward trying to get out of it. And maybe there's some even entrapment issues, because the person that they're cheating with is like, oh, you better not. There can always be potential for entrapment. This isn't really about that. All this, and the person has a really, really difficult time, because it's not as easy to slide out of that relationship as it was to slide into it. Literally and figuratively. But then the spouse finds out. And hell hath no fury like a woman. What is there to do? Do I want to lose everything that I've built with this person over the course of years, maybe even decades? Do I want my kids to have a split home? Do I want to start life over? So the person who is innocent in this has just learned of a calamity. When questioned, the person, the guilty party, the cheater, was like, yes, I did it. Now, they can give all the sorrow and all the things that they want to do, all the apologies. I'm so sorry, baby. I promise I'll never do it again. I didn't mean to. I don't know what I was thinking. No, I've never done it before. No, I don't understand. It started so innocently, and I didn't mean to. We were just friends. Or it could be like, well, if you wouldn't do X, Y, and Z, oh my gosh. But none of that is going to matter, because the spouse is going to be so livid that, oh man, it's going to be character crucifixion. But now, here is the interesting psychology that the spouse really has to deal with, and the dissonance that they have to go through. Like, it's really, really difficult to think that good people can screw up so badly that they're willing to sacrifice everything that is good for something so quick and pointless. Really, really disruptive. And really, really disruptive to your own life, the person's life who they purport to love. It's like, man, that seems, if there's something irredeemable, this has to be it. And we can't fathom how someone that we love, who we admired, at least at some point, even if we, the innocent party who have just been cheated on, maybe we understand that our relationship has not been great. Maybe we see why the person would cheat, even though we can't, oh my God, we can't admit that. Maybe we think everything has been peachy. Everything's been perfect from our end. And yet, no matter how awesome it has been, oh my God, the person has betrayed us so egregiously. How can we forgive that? No matter the redeemable qualities that they have, how can we forgive that? How could we ever establish trust again? How could we ever behave toward them without thinking that they may be thinking of someone else? How can any semblance of understanding be ratified? How could we have been so stupid to believe them? How could we have been so stupid to fall in love with a person who would treat us so disrespectfully? In some real sense, it's easy to fall into the trap to blame ourselves. The spouse could have been caught by surprise with all this information. Like, it really wrecks them psychologically. They don't know what to do. They don't know what direction to go. Or maybe this isn't the first time. This may have been it could have even been an habitual thing that they just put up with. Hang around, I've got a story about that. But the spouse really has to try to reconcile with seeing the person that they have chosen to love with who they want them to be. It's like the spouse wants them to be a decent father or decent mother. The spouse wants them to be a provider of some sort, a partner in crime, not literal crime, but be their other half, like the thing that completes them. And whether the spouse has recognized historically throughout the relationship that the person has fulfilled any of those desires, it's only half the picture if the answer is no. Because if the answer is no, for whatever reason, the spouse has still chosen to hang around. It's like they have given this person every opportunity to improve the relationship, whether with just patience or with, well, probably just patience. Or maybe the spouse is not really any better than the person who is cheated as far as actually trying to make the thing work, but because it's convenient, they just stuck around. That makes for a bad relationship too. So as a consequence to all of this, the spouse really, really has their own psychological issues, like their own dissonance. Do I stay? Do I go? What is going to happen to me financially? Right? We can't just say that this is all about love and devotion, because there's so much more. How can I, if I bounce out of this thing, how can I afford the bills? How can I take on new bills? How am I going to find somewhere to live? Who's going to take care of my kids when I'm at work? I can't afford daycare. Or, conversely, will I have the opportunity to see my kids when I want? Will my ex let me see the kids? Like, there's so many things, man. This is an absolute travesty of events. And you are forced to either come to terms with, well, you're forced to come to terms with them, but you don't know what to do, as a consequence of them. That's really, really rough to deal with. And there really is no good answers, because there's no assurance of reconciliation. And even if the thing can be reconciled, is it going to just be a thing that is numb? A thing that has no joy? A thing that always leads to paranoia? If I stay in this thing, am I always going to have to question where their obligation lies? Probably they will say that anyway, because they want to fake repentance and they want to make you think that they're humble and good and all this stuff. And honestly, history and time can only tell the story if that's true or not. If they have shown great humility in the past and admitted to any kind of error, be it large or small, and they put real attention to correcting those errors, maybe things are salvageable. If they haven't, or heaven forbid, they've blamed you for those errors, you may want to be a little bit more reticent to believe them. So what do you need to do in the midst of this? What do you want to do in the midst of this? Like, well, maybe, so you've packed your bags, you've left, you've bounced, you've decided that the best thing for you to do, maybe you need to live with your parents for a little bit, maybe live with a buddy, maybe rent an apartment, maybe just find a closet at work and stay there. I mean, like, you're going through all these things, and maybe the idea that you need to escape wherever it may be is a legitimate one. Like, you need to get away and have time to figure this out, because you can't bear the thought of seeing this person who has betrayed you so bad every day. Like, you don't want to share space with that person. There's no clarity in sharing space with this person. And all that you need right now, despite the difficulty of finding it, is clarity. If the person isn't honoring your need to find clarity, or doesn't want you to search for a way to find clarity, that is an indication of control, my friends. That is probably not what you want, or probably not what you need. Is the person that they have purported to love irredeemable or not? There might be good redeemable qualities that the person may have. Are they genuinely a decent person? Do they lack empathy? Do they have humility? Because here's the fact that is really difficult to overcome for the spouse who has been cheated on. Sometimes genuinely decent people make really bad mistakes. What mistake is so irredeemable that it's unforgivable? Well, to most people, infidelity is that thing. Does infidelity mean that the person is incapable of doing good ever in the future? Or that it is absolutely the case that they will be a cheater and unfair to you in the future? Because the really, really cold hard truth that it's hard to chew on is no, it doesn't mean that. I have known good people who have made terrible mistakes, and as a consequence of those mistakes, the marriage has actually, they have improved as a person. They have grown spiritually, morally. Their marriage has grown stronger over time. Trust has been established. And this is really hard for people who have been cheated on to deal with, because it's far easier to say this person is a complete psycho. They're trash. They don't deserve anything. They don't have the capacity to love. They don't have the capacity to do anything because they have cheated on me. What have I done wrong? I'm the victim. And you are the victim if you've been cheated on. But there's an element here that nobody really wants to talk about. And that is redemption. What are the qualities of a cheater? Now, it's probably very easy to list all these really bad things, these bad attributes, bad characteristics of who we think a cheater may be. What they look like, what they do, the way they behave, the way that they see themselves and the world, the way they see themselves in the world. This fire is going strong, homie. Look at this. We're 35 minutes in, probably. It's amazing. Too hot to sit beside, though. I just have so much to say. Story time. I knew this person one time who was really desperate to make a marriage work. And this person had experienced chronic infidelity. Going into the relationship, he had hoped that he could have made life so good for this person within months. This person had been told that their spouse had cheated on them. Initially, they had to really grapple with this thing, like, who am I willing to put faith and trust into? The person that I love, or the person that I've known a long time telling me about this thing, and the person that I've known a long time has never lied to me. So the confrontation occurs, and the spouse denies it. But then over time, more stories emerge. Things are not so mysterious at home. Suddenly, like, there are just a barrage of coincidences, and like, things are so undeniable that the person admits their fault. The spouse is like, yeah, I did this, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. And so the person that is being cheated on is crushed, right? Because you can't have a good marriage and have your spouse just cheating on you. And so the person decides, well, what is the best way for trust to ever be established? This is very counterintuitive. Most people would be like, okay, so my spouse has exhibited these behaviors, these chronic behaviors with I'm not sure how many people. They want to tell their spouse to not go here, not with this group of people, don't see this person, maybe break their phone, break all contact, and all these things. In other words, really just become a dictator and dare their spouse to do X, Y, and Z. This person decided to do the opposite, kind of. This person figured out that, okay, well, if I limit what my if I fight with my spouse over all the things that I'm going to allow them to do, then not only am I going to create more tension and more chaos, but I'm also never going to ever be able to establish any kind of faith in this relationship again. Because the purpose of this is to reduce paranoia, right? Am I ever going to I need counter proof. I don't need proof that they've cheated, because I already have that. I need counter proof that they won't again. So there was never any kind of do this, don't do that. Certainly there was conversations such as, I wish you wouldn't do this, or maybe this is not a good idea. And one could even call this a game, I guess. But they really needed to know how the spouse is going to react in situations that was blatantly obvious. I mean, blatantly obvious. Like, there was never confusion. There was never ambiguity. It was like, you may have well done this in front of me. The attempt from the cheater was always to conceal, right? Because it was never like one of those open kind of relationships. It was never that. In other words, the cheating spouse always knew that their behavior was not acceptable to the relationship. That was never in question. But the person decided that, okay, this spouse is cheating on me. I'm going to let it get so undeniably obvious over time and never, for lack of better words, limit what they can do or where they can go or who can be there and what so on and so forth, because I need counterproof. I need to know what they're willing to do without limits. In other words, if the person is willing to limit themselves, if the cheater realizes the error of their ways and decides to limit themselves, that is an attribute that may allow the relationship to work. Is there self-correction? Usually self-correction only comes from humility. Like I said earlier, if someone has done something habitually and they're just numb to it, the likelihood of self-correction goes out the window. In this particular case, there was no offering of self-correction, and things just ended. It couldn't be reconciled. The redeemable quality that would have been required is humility of the error and the willingness to self-correct. If that's not there, If that's not there, it's probably not redeemable. But if it is there, the person that is requiring redemption, maybe that needs to be noticed. It's like at some point, the spouse that was cheated on, they're trying to reconcile all these things. How can a good person that I've loved do this? How could I have been so naive? How could I have been so stupid? And yet, underlying all of these things, the immediate emotional things, they have to recognize also that this person may have redeemable qualities because their sorrow is genuine. Their penitence is genuine. Can this thing be salvaged over time? Does this thing mean enough to me? Does this relationship mean enough to me such that I can be patient enough with this person that's behaved atrociously? Will it happen again? Can I make this work? Do I want to make this work? Should I make this work? Do they deserve for me to make this work? The purpose of that story is not to tell you how to handle this absolute disaster that you've learned about or that you're learning about at the moment. It's to make you think about what you want. And you're like, well, I know what I want. Well, okay, maybe you do know what you want, but do you know how to get there? It's like if you put all these restrictions on someone, all you're doing is setting yourself up to be paranoid the rest of your natural born life. You want the knowledge that the person's going to be faithful. And so the idea is, well, if I know where they're at 24/7, if I know who they're with every waking minute of the day, if I have access to their phone all the time, which I think that is a good idea, then at least I will be able to keep tabs on them. But what about most of the time, as this story indicates, and I believe this to be a pretty true thing, evidence will make itself clear. If you really want to know the person and their fidelity or infidelity, see how they behave without any restrictions. See if they restrict themselves. And if they restrict themselves and give you all the access that you never asked for because they want you to have it, that means exponentially more to you. And it will mean exponentially more to you than thinking, well, I've only got this access because I have demanded it. Another thing about all this stuff is the time that we have invested in the relationship, in the person that we're with. Because sometimes relationships will go on simply because of our investment. We are so arrogant to think that, well, because I have invested so much into this, it would be irresponsible for me to leave now, despite being miserable, despite being treated atrociously, despite whatever kind of excuse that we have, or despite whatever concern that we have. That goes for the first year or the 15th. It doesn't really matter. Like, investment really means something. And that investment makes it all the harder. I ain't gonna let you guys lose sight on this. See, it's not even made it to the base yet. Told you it'd work. Or, also sometimes we have to say that the relationship, even though the person's that cheated on us, our spouse, their behavior was reprehensible. This doesn't mean that we were easy to live with, that we were completely innocent. Like, we didn't cheat, we didn't do this, but there's certainly things that we could have done better. We could have kept their attention longer. We could have offered this and that. We may have to see that, okay, this was a passionless relationship. And I'm not just saying sex. I'm just saying that we haven't touched each other or acknowledged each other's presence in the last 5 years. Okay? Whether I tried to initiate it, if I tried to initiate it, it's easier to dispel that myth. If I never tried to initiate it, maybe I even was repulsed by their initiation, then I've got to accept some things could have been better on my end, and I might have been able to prevent this travesty. Maybe not at all. Maybe the person's just a complete psychopath who wants to bang everybody. But we can see is the person redeemable? Like, what if this person, like, I don't know, helps everybody they can. They feed the poor. Or what if they always give that 10% tithe? Like, every time the offering plate is passed around at church, they're giving at least 10% of their checks. No one is immune from this. There is no group of people where this can't happen. And it's really, really hard to see the person as being a good person. Like, because sometimes we have to face the fact that these people who have done this to us might be good people. You have witnessed them helping people in so many areas of their life. Like, they have a humanity about them. And this behavior is in such conflict with all the humanity that you've witnessed over the years that it's easy to say, I never knew you. And maybe you didn't. Let's say that the spouse is willing to make this work. Okay? Maybe it's taken a little bit of time, a lot of time. Maybe, the first day you found out, it's packing your bags. Maybe you live somewhere else for a week or two before you're willing to even suggest that reconciliation could or should occur. But you've decided to make it work because you've decided to wager your future on the person's redeemable qualities. That was a difficult thing to do. But maybe it's worth it. You don't know just yet, but maybe. So time goes on a little bit. The person's all that you could have asked for, even though that maybe you're not giving them the time and space to be optimal. While you have made the decision to allow this thing to possibly work, because maybe it's because of your investment, maybe it's because of your love and devotion, whatever thing it may be in your head that you've reasoned that this thing is worth it going forward, are you going to berate the person for their mistakes and remind them constantly of their mistakes for the next 10 years? Because look, if you do that, how can it work out? How can you constantly remind a person of how bad they have behaved and expect good things to come from it? Like, you wouldn't want that. You might even see yourself as a good, empathic person who would have never behaved so atrociously, so badly, so irredeemably. But it's easy to pat ourselves on the back and say, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And because I want to prove that I can make this work. I want to be the strong one, the wise one, the sage. And yet, you're going to make the person that you fundamentally purport to care for miserable by telling them how bad they are forever. Look, it's very, very difficult to forgive and forget. But if you have decided to make this thing work, then you need to make it work. You need to do the best that you can. And the best that you can do is not to make the person feel as miserable as they can be for the next 10 years, for the rest of their life. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. Otherwise, just leave. Forget about it. Move on. But if you're going to make it work, be as optimal as you can about it. Maybe you're asking, like, how can I not remind them every single day after they have done this? Like, they deserve to feel bad about this. Right? And am I not, don't I deserve to kind of give them the pain that they gave me? Don't I deserve to let them know how terrible that they have done me? Remember, I'm the victim. This is kind of my way of not only making sure things are set straight, but I deserve vengeance. Or maybe you don't think you deserve vengeance, but maybe you kind of want vengeance. Rating them forever is vengeance. And if you want vengeance, then you don't want your relationship to work. Because nobody who, let's say that the person, even the cheater, let's say that the cheater even recognizes that, you know what, I deserve it. I deserve all the things that they are saying because I've done what I've done. A month goes by. Yeah, I mean, I wish they would let it drop a little bit because I know I done wrong. I have screwed up. But I ain't going to do it again. Like, I really want to fix this thing. 6 months go by. Man, I wish they would let it drop. Like, I'm trying to stay cool about this. I'm trying to ensure, like, I'm giving them every possible way that I know how to let them know that I'm staying faithful and true. Like, I'm on the straight and narrow. There's nothing else that I know to do. It's like they have my phone. They have all my passwords. They call me constantly. They check in on me everywhere I go. I can't even go eat without them. You know, they even have friends out in the community kind of spying on me. It's like, then a year goes by. Look, I'm getting sick and tired of being told how rotten I am despite my best efforts. Like, there's nothing else that I can do. I can't believe I made it this long. This is exactly why I was looking for something else in the first place. Because they're so controlling. They want to know everything about me. And there's no joy in that. This is exactly why I got off the rails. And the spouse is confused about where it went wrong. And why the revenge and the dictatorship and the control went awry. And then likely blames the cheating spouse who has tried to be as redeemable as possible. How they've been pushed right off the emotional cliff. It's like, it takes two to tango, people. If you're not going to be on board with this thing, if you're not going to be on the side of your spouse especially after a little bit of time, like you are setting this up for another catastrophe. Like, even, let's say it's not even about the person cheating again, it's about them leaving because they don't want to be berated the rest of their life. And they may not see an end to it. It's like, okay, am I going to do this on year 10? Am I going to hear the same crap? All I'm wanting to do is hug you. And you're telling me that I'm probably thinking of someone else. It's like, I can't make this work. It's very easy for the spouse that was cheated on to not want to change that, to feel like that they deserve to minimize their partner. And it is easy for the spouse to be in that position, right? Even if it's not about revenge, even if it's not about that, maybe it's about fear. It doesn't have to be anger necessarily. It can be about fear. They can easily set themselves up to believe that if I don't constantly remind them of what they've done, maybe they will repeat the same error. And out of desperation, I don't know what else to do. I've got to ensure with every fiber in me that this won't happen again, because I can't emotionally endure it. It's very difficult to go through. It's very difficult to say that because I want this thing to work, I've got to not seek the thing that is the easiest thing to seek. At least after my initial responses. Sure, get it out of your system. Tell them all the crazy crap, all the trash, all the complete psychopathic whatever, how that they don't even deserve their next breath. Tell them from what space to jump and how high it should be. My God, get it off your chest. But after it is off your chest, and if you're saying, well, it's never going to be off my chest because this thing is bad, okay, fair enough. But at some point, look, let's talk about practice, because at some point you need to practice a different way of dealing with this calamity. Something that no one really ever talks about psychologically is practice. And I don't know why. If I want to be good at free throws, because free throws win games, then more than likely, if I don't like free throws, I will still like the idea of free throws. But the idea of free throws don't mean that I'm in the gym practicing the free throw. Instead of liking the free throw, I like the idea of the free throw. What happens when I like the idea more than the thing is that I don't practice the thing. I know that if I don't practice free throws, that I'm not going to get better at them. Interestingly, if I decide to practice free throws or am forced to practice free throws, after a day, it's not going to matter at all. I'm not going to get better at free throws in a day. After a month, maybe I might be marginally better. Undoubtedly better than I was when I started, but I'm still probably going to suck pretty bad at it. I just took out a spider. I hate those things. I practiced my free throws. So after the month, and I'm marginally better, I still hate it. I'm going to come up with excuses why not to do the free throw and put that responsibility on other people. But let's say that I'm patient and I practice tenacity with the free throw, meaning that despite my inability to get better, seemingly, I'm persistent in my attempt. Because one thing, failure really demotivates us. If we're not seeing progress after a little bit of time, we think that all attempts to practice is not worth it, and we give up. Giving up is not going to get us better. Giving up is not going to make a better free throw shooter. Giving up is not going to make us better emotionally either. After a year, we're going to be way better at the free throw. And we've really proved something to ourselves, that tenacity and willingness and diligence matters. Being patient with ourselves, despite it being uncomfortable, matters, because we're better at something. as a consequence of that, we're motivated to do it more. We're motivated to make ourselves uncomfortable in the short term to have consequences that we prefer in the long term. People problematically think that the same is not applicable to our psychological state. If we get angry quickly, we have to practice not getting angry, because that's default. Anger is the default. It comes natural to us. We just explode, and we think we don't have the resources to do anything differently. We've just accepted that about ourselves. Maybe other people have accepted that about us. Nobody likes us for it, though. Or let's just say that we are very, very passive, and we don't like conflict. We hate confrontation. We avoid confrontation at all costs. We get very anxious in these situations. Well, believe it or not, we can practice not being anxious. You don't hear that in therapy. And this is not just saying, oh, you don't like this thing about yourself? Don't be that way. No, it's not that easy, and I'm not trying to minimize it. At the same time, I'm not catastrophizing everything either. People have that tendency. Let's take the notion of sobriety. Someone who struggles with alcoholism is always going to have a reason to drink. Why? Because there's always going to be a reason to cope or celebrate. Something goes wrong in life. It's like, this sucks. I don't care. What happens? You open the bottle. Or something could go really, really good. It's like, woo, yeah! Open bottle there too. Rarely is life so monotonous that we don't find there's a need. But we associate the alcohol with every facet of life. The people we see, the places we go. Association is a big part of this thing. It's never the case that the alcoholic doesn't recognize that sobriety is a better option. But over time, especially after having failed to be sober, they kind of give up. The willingness to practice a state of being different is unbelievably difficult. Like, it's a very hard thing to do. And when we rely on a certain thing to make us who we think we are, for better or worse, because we have prescribed to there being a notion of the self, we just kind of acquiesce, and any desire to make needed changes, well, it just kind of dissipates. It's like we know there could be positive changes made in our life. If I'd done this, then this would probably be better. If I'd done that, things would probably be better. If I didn't do that, if I didn't do this, always looking for the constant state of betterment. And yet denying that we have power to make any of those changes. Because we don't practice them. We don't want to practice a different way of being. That's too hard. And if we don't practice a different way of being, meaning the way we think or behave in certain conditions, and yet life has been in a constant state of chaos and catastrophe. Why would we ever think that the state of chaos and catastrophe wouldn't exist? Yet we want to be better at shooting free throws and winning the game. What about the game of life? Or what about our relationship? Relationships shouldn't be games. Even though we treat them like a game. I was talking about behaviors being indicative of self earlier. And what does that mean? Well, it's like, as humans, we're made up of basically three facets, right? The thinking side, the emotional side, and the behaving side. And it's usually kind of the rule of the way things work is we think, and as a consequence of those thoughts, we feel something, and then usually we behave as a result of whatever emotion is attached to the thought. It's kind of a generic explanation, but you get what I'm saying. As a result of that, we behave in a way that is indicative of our thoughts and feelings. And we want to think that we are rational and that we feel accordingly. I've often talked to people who say, I can't get my relationship to work. So if I see myself as an angry person, someone who is strong and willing to not take any crap, at least for the rest of my life, because I've been through too much crap. If I don't, the question is, do I recognize that this anger, this inability to get past whatever conflict that I've really needed to deal with, if that is making life rougher on me, despite my attempt to think that it should be making things better, well, maybe I need to change something about myself. If I'm always angry about my spouse doing things or having done things that has been so unfavorable and I can't get past it, how am I any different? Well, look, if I have basically been drunk on anger and know that it's not the best thing for me, and I want to be sober from the anger. Like, I'm seeking sobriety from this conflict, this emotional state that perpetuates every part of my being. Because I'm so broken, I'm without capacity to do better. Like, this is the only part of me that I know. It's the only way that I know to cope. It's the only way that I know to cope. It's the only way that I know to cope. If every little thing ticks me off, and since we're talking about cheating, let's just say that I have constant reminders. Then when I am reminded of something, whether it's because I associate a place with something bad, and as a result of thinking of the bad thing and having a negative reaction to it, which comes very easy and natural, maybe I need to be like, I am going to associate this place with something different. It could be a song, it could be a different memory. Maybe I want to avoid the place, even though I don't think avoidance is always the answer. In fact, I think avoidance is rarely the answer. But I need to practice a different way of thinking about this place. In other words, I need to associate with something differently every time. The reason I need to do this is because I recognize that if I don't change something, things are going to be bad. Does your desire to change the thing, your emotional connectivity and your emotional reaction, and thusly your behavior, which is likely a negative behavior, a bad behavior, is that more important to you than the thing that you hope to fix, or your desire to feel good? Because if our desire is to feel good, what we would like to think, what is rational at least, is, well, escaping the negative, not being bad, not having bad thoughts, bad behaviors, bad feelings. Like, if we're complacent having the bad stuff, the bad thoughts and feelings and behaviors, then of course we're not going to change. But we can't lie to ourselves and say that, well, I don't want to be angry, and then be angry all the time. Like, that doesn't make sense, and that's going to really be obvious to ourselves and our partner. So in essence, we really have to practice, we have to be willing to practice a different way. We have to be willing to think differently, and that requires practice, just like the free throw. How can I not be this way? How can I not be this way, especially given that if I know that I stay this way, things are not going to end well for me. Like with or without the person. Like if the person that I say that I love, that I want to make things work with, my anger is going to push them away. My inability to forgive them is going to push them away. And when they're away, I'm just going to keep being angry. And even if I'm not angry at them, after they leave, I'll be angry at myself for making them leave. Like, this rut is not what I need. It's not what is best for me. And I'm not so stupid as to recognize that, but I don't know how to fix it. Have you ever heard of Pavlov? Pavlov was this genius psychologist, and he had the idea that we were conditioned to things. In other words, we associated stuff that really didn't have any tie to the things we associated it with. He set up his experiments with dogs and steak and a bell. First, he would introduce the dog to the steak, and the dog would salivate. Eventually, he introduced the bell with the steak so that the dog would hear a bell while he was salivating. And eventually, he didn't introduce the steak. He just introduced the bell to the dog, and the dog would salivate because the dog associated the bell with the steak, and the steak made him salivate. Associations play a huge role in our psych stuff, in our psychology, in our emotional stuff. If we associate ourselves with being angry, or we associate a spouse that makes us angry, or we associate our spouse, or if we associate our spouse at a specific place or with a specific person, or whatever combination of things that you find to be so unbelievably hard to bear that it makes you angry just upon thinking about it, then maybe you need a different association. You need to train your brain to pick up stimuli that you didn't think was relevant. Have you ever heard like a song and it takes you back to a specific moment in childhood? Like you can even smell the room. Why are you to believe that the same thing can't occur for betterment? The same psychological trap that has placed you in the very damning place that you are can't bring you out of it. We can learn to associate stimuli. If you want to deaden the association of a song with a specific time in your life or a specific person, listen to that song when the person is not there, right? Let's say that it was like a prom or something silly like that, right? And then that person broke your heart. So every time that you heard the song, you would get your heart broken, right? Well, maybe you need to listen to that song at a party. Don't know why you do that. Maybe you need to learn that that song does not tie you to anything, so that when you hear the song in the future, it doesn't provoke that emotional response. This is not easy to do, especially if we consider ourselves emotionally damaged and incapable of doing that. But I assure you, your perception of yourself is probably not as accurate as you'd like to think. So you're angry at home, and, well, it's like, look, one of the things that we tell people who have an addiction to substances, it's like, remove yourself from the person, place, and thing that you associate with the substance. The idea being that when you remove that association, you won't think about it as much, and it'll be easier to bear. Different environment and all that stuff. Another idea is that you can become numb to things. You can grow different associations, or you can obtain different associations. And that is in addition to removing yourself from all those situations, if you stay in those situations around the same people, places, and things, but you learn to associate them with a different thing instead of the substance, let's say that you associate the same people with, I don't know, church. If you can reassociate yourself, and this is not a therapy session on how to do that, but if you can reassociate, the same thing happens. The temptation subsides. The temptation to do the substance or the temptation to be angry. And while it would be easy for me to get into like the psychological and maybe unconscious stuff that is required, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'll do a video on all that stuff, but this is not the time. I'm not going to waste your time on it either. Just know that association is a powerful thing, and we can use that to our benefit. But we have to be willing to relearn. And relearning something takes practice. Like I have to practice going to the place and behaving and thinking and having a different emotional response. And if I do that enough, just like the person, remember in the beginning of this when I was talking about the person having to become numb to it because they couldn't reconcile themselves as a good person doing something bad, but over time it becomes easier and easier? Well, the same thing applies to you. The person who is trying to cope with all this anxiety and tension and anger and displeasure, you can become numb to this stuff too, which in turn will make all this stuff easier to deal with, including not only your spouse, but the very anger that you have for them. We don't really talk about appreciation enough. Like gratitude, showing someone grace. Like appreciation is something that has to be reciprocal. It has to be a two-way street where both parties tango. It's like if someone is good to you, it'd be very unwise to not cherish that. Like you've got to let that person know that you really care and thank them. Let them know that they are appreciated. And for the person who has been cheated on, this is difficult, especially initially. I'm not trying to minimize that. What I'm saying is that some point and this is really revolving, like this video is about the person who is penitent, who does want to make it work, where both parties want to make it work. This isn't about the ones who just don't care. They're not going to receive anything from this video anyway. But at some point, the person that has been cheated on, and they're trying to make all these reconciliations psychologically. If the person is nice to them, it's going to be expected for the first little bit because they've got some making up to do. But over time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, they've consistently been everything that you've wanted. You're having a difficult time getting that really bad thing out of your head. It's difficult to appreciate the person for being good to you. It's easy to think that it's fake. It's easy to think that, however you want to minimize it, for the person that was the cheater, at some point they're going to want you to recognize their attempt. And so the point to saying all this is it's important for both parties to be gracious and appreciative. Oh my God, that's a very difficult thing to do. if we don't reciprocate appreciation, this goes for people that's not even been cheated on, right? This video is about infidelity, but this goes for all relationships. Like, if you don't appreciate, if there's nothing to appreciate, that's probably indicative of a bad relationship, right? That's not healthy. One of the hallmarks of a good relationship, I would argue, is the ability, the reason to appreciate someone. If they're giving you a reason to appreciate them and you don't appreciate them, that is your fault, not theirs. It takes two to tango. So I would say that both parties, if they give you a reason to show appreciation, you should show appreciation. Maybe you're asking, well, what does that even look like? You know, is that just saying I love you before I go to bed? Is that, taking care of the bills? Is that taking care of the finances? Sometimes it's the simplest form. Sometimes it's as easy as saying, I really love and appreciate you. Just thank you. The person that you love will likely recognize that you're being genuine with them. They will appreciate that. And if they're worthy of that appreciation, more than likely they will tell you that they appreciate you too. And you get that warm, fuzzy feeling that you've been looking for. If you're unwilling to make that sacrifice because it's too painful, because you're angry, ask yourself why it is difficult to tell them that you appreciate them. Is it because of them, or is it because of you? Even if it's because of you, and you have all this reason to not show them appreciation because they don't deserve it, or it's too difficult, you've still got to recognize that they're not doing anything wrong. Just because they've done something wrong doesn't mean that they're doing it now. Doesn't mean that they're going to ever do it again, even. In fact, they might be nicer now than they've ever been to you in your entire relationship. Like, it is even above and beyond what it was on day one. And somehow this feels different. You feel exposed. You feel vulnerable. You feel anger. All these things towards someone who has done nothing but show you the most extreme version of love and virtue for the last 12 months, 2 years, 5 years. And you don't know how to fix that. One way to probably start fixing that is practicing gratitude. If you want to. Again, if you don't want to, you're probably just as guilty at not wanting this to work as your partner was when he or she was banging whoever, whenever, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago. It takes two to tango. And if you are not in sync with one another, don't want the same outcomes, are not willing to make the same concessions, if things are not reciprocal, it's going to be more difficult than it needs to be, even if it does work. If we're constantly lying to ourselves about what we want, guess what? We're lying to the person that we say we love too, or the person that we say that we want to make this thing work with, which is hopefully the person that you love. If not, that's bad already. And the person that you're saying all these things to, well, I want it to be fixed. Why do you think I'm around? Of course I want it to work. You're like, well, why are you so ticked off all the time? Why are you so mad? Why are you controlling everything that I do? Like there's so much tension, unhealthy tension. A static state of unhealthy tension is untenable. Like nothing can survive that, not for a long period of time. It's like if we look at the brains of people who have endured trauma, like there are neurological deficits as a consequence of that. Like catecholamines hijack the hippocampus. We have all these different like memory deficiencies, cognitive deficiencies, emotional deficiencies. And if you're willing to just endure something that is so unpleasant, I'm not trying to say that every relationship resembles a traumatic experience. What I am saying is that chronic psychological fatigue is likely to mimic something that looks like trauma. And to have those neurological deficiencies is almost inevitable. And with those things not intact, well, the psychological representation is not going to be intact either. And without that, probably the relationship will not remain intact. And the spouse really has to think of something else that's uncomfortable, because they have to think, what mistakes have I made? And have I made any mistakes that are irredeemable? From what mistakes have I made that the person has been willing to forgive me? And if they've not been willing to forgive you, it's far easier to not forgive them, especially for something so atrocious. But they also have to think that, well, at least a humble spouse will think to themselves, am I perfect? Am I redeemable? Is the facade that the cheater is showing right now displaying that I have redeemable qualities? Because that matters too. Although this could be a complete video in itself, I do want to mention that it's like the very notion that we think we deserve something good. That probably indicates that we lack humility. Because the sorrow and the penitence, the lamenting that occurs, if it's genuine, they will say they don't deserve you. They have failed you and they don't deserve a second chance. We know that getting punched in the mouth is not a good relationship. We know that being constantly cheated on is not a good relationship. We know that people who are intolerable of us burning breakfast is not a good relationship. Speaking of, what are we willing to tolerate? Sometimes people will, excuses are so ubiquitous, and like, are we willing to tolerate somebody working hard and then maybe forgetting to get the mail on the way home? Is that intolerable? What about burning breakfast? What about buying something on Amazon and not paying the bills? A lot of problems in relationships are just silly, and we are intolerable. I think if we're honest, the tension, the healthy tension that is required is more or less having the audacity to confront the person that we say we love. Like, sometimes hard conversations need to happen. It's like, maybe we shouldn't buy that $300 watch or $300 dress. The person that you have these conversations with, if they have mutual respect for you and care and respect is reciprocated. They will admire you for that rather than fault you for it. Because audacity is an important thing. It does not mean being rude. Like, you shouldn't be a slave. Like, you don't have to be mean about it. If you are very passive and just don't say anything because you want to avoid conflict and you just acquiesce to whatever your partner wants all the time, well, respect's not going to occur because the person walking all over you is not showing you any respect, and the person that walks all over you, you're not really going to have any respect for. So there has to be reciprocated respect and audacity, and the belief that conflict can be important and additive to the relationship and not just consequential. It's like maybe we need to have hard conversations sometimes, but we need to respect the fact that we're willing to do that as opposed to just demean and degrade because that means I can't get my way. You're not supposed to get your way all the time. Like you read on the internet about all these different kinds of relationships. And all this stuff like love languages and all this other garbage. I think it's all trash. I really do. There's really only two kinds of relationships: healthy and unhealthy. How do you define a healthy relationship? Well, I think that's largely dependent upon the definition that we give it. I mean, some people are willing to have a relationship that is brutal in many facets. And I'm not talking like BDSM. They will find themselves verbally eviscerated every single day and still make an excuse for the person because maybe they deserve it. Right? Like a good manipulator will make you think that, hey, you deserve this. This is your fault. If you wasn't like this, then I wouldn't do this, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you might stay, but you know good and well that's not a healthy relationship. There's no give and take in that. To which I think one of the defining features of a healthy relationship is reciprocity. Of course, reciprocity has to be good. Just because something's reciprocal doesn't mean that it's good. So I guess the meat and potatoes of this entire video is, how do relationships work? What makes a relationship work? If there isn't trust, sacrifice, and the willingness to make the person that you purport to love happier than yourself, it won't. It's like trust has to be established. It's something that's earned. If the person that you're with just repeatedly cheats on you, well, trust can't happen. It'll never be there. No matter what you do, no matter the insane distance that you're willing to travel to make the person not do that behavior, it won't work. So what about sacrifice? Well, sacrifice comes in many forms, but it's ultimately sacrificing of the idea of the person that you want them to be in relation to who they really are. If the person that you're with doesn't see themselves as the angel of death that you make them out to be on a daily basis, how is constantly reminding them that they're that person going to fix anything? And finally, the person that we have chosen to place our trust in and have willingness to make sacrifices for, we need to have the desire to make them happier than to be happy ourselves. Ultimately, if we don't desire this, then we're not going to make sacrifices, whether we trust them or not. Trust in and of itself is not going to lend its hand strong enough to keep the grasp required to hold on to this thing. And it'll be evident. We've got to want them to be happier than we're willing to make ourselves. That is the sacrifice. I think that we need to be a servant to the person that we love. Relationships require servitude. And this is whether you're a man or a woman.
If both parties are not willing to serve the other, it's just not going to work. You can't serve someone and never get served and maintain any semblance of joy in your life. If either person in the relationship fails to do this, man, it makes for a very damaging experience. There's no way that the longevity can happen if it can never work if it's just take and never give, or give and never get. And I think servitude, it's not being a slave to the person. Servitude is honoring them such that you're willing to make sacrifice to make them happy. This is not to say that you have to repetitively give everything up all the time, and the expectation should not be placed upon you to give everything up all the time. But if this is reciprocated, it won't be, right? Because their service to you will be exactly the same. Again, it takes two. Otherwise, it's just manipulation and games, and no relationship can withstand that for a long time. This requires work, practice. If you're not willing to put practice toward the thing that you want or the thing that you wish you wanted, then it's just not going to work. And your spouse will see this because it's true whether you deny it or not. Why? Because genuinely your care lies elsewhere. You may not want to say that or believe it. Doesn't make it any less true. So let's talk more about what do I mean by tension and challenge. Tension is not something that exists painfully. Like, I'm not talking about a painful tension. I'm not talking about walking on eggshells. God, walking on eggshells is the worst. Nobody wants to exist like that. Tension is more about camaraderie. You know, I firmly believe that you should probably not trust someone who always agrees with you. Because while people can be very agreeable, most of the time, it's like that politician who just says whatever they have to say in order to get the vote. Relationships, good relationships, don't work like that. There has to be a willingness to say, I don't know about that. And the person that you love should be able to accept that and actually adore that about you if you do it carefully. It doesn't mean to be challenging for the sake of challenge. It just means be strong, have a sense of conviction. Conviction is important because conviction really undergirds a lot of things when it comes to other people that we come in contact with, especially the person that we say we love. If you're strong in your convictions, then the person can have a better sense that you're going to be strong in the relationship. So the tension that I'm talking about is not fear. It's not anger. It's none of this negative stuff. It's more about audacity and having the reciprocity of respect. When you respect someone, you're more likely to honor them. Honor seems important in a relationship. Didn't I say something about servitude? Also, for the person that is facing all the temptations, like somebody at work, right? We're looking to get an ego boost. The point is, we shouldn't look for an ego boost, especially from someone that's not our spouse. We are very eager to tempt ourselves in order to feel better about ourselves. like self-confidence, self-esteem. And if we're completely honest, most of the time when our significant other just gives us compliments, we think it might be because, well, they got to say it, you know, or it's just an interesting example is when you say I love you to someone before you go to bed or before you leave to work. It's like the mandatory I love you. It's like, it's not that you don't think it's true, it's like you think it rests on obligation or habit. And because of that, we tend to minimize its power and minimize its truth. And the same goes for whether we say it or we hear it. So when someone new says something to us, that we look good today, or that we're funny, or that we're smart, or that, you know, those jeans look good. I guess the cool kids today would say, well, that hits different. The point to saying all of this is that we don't need to tempt ourselves and place ourselves in situations to receive a confidence boost. Like, that doesn't serve the person that we love. And guess what? It doesn't serve us either. Egoism is short-lived. You know, throughout this video, I want to kind of give perspective from both the cheater and the person who's being cheated on. We're not good at identifying the other person's perspective. So it's not a justification, it's an explanation. Something else is we can't take advantage of the person treating us well. I hear so many times that, well, he treats me good or she treats me good and I'm still miserable. We need to understand that being treated well does, especially, look, sometimes people will treat us well when we don't deserve it. I do intend on making a video on the notion of deserve, because fundamentally I think the notion of deserve is a bad one, but that's another video. For now, you know, if we don't deserve to get smacked in the mouth just because, I don't know, we drop a plate in the floor, or we don't deserve to get kicked in the shin because we forgot something on the grocery list, right? But also, when we're treated well, it doesn't give us the right to misuse that treatment. If I know my partner is passive, I don't need to capitalize on that by being rude and mean. On the other hand, if I'm passive and I don't like confrontation, it doesn't mean that I should just accept someone being rude and mean to me. We need to understand if someone is treating us good, right? We need to learn how to appreciate good things. I don't think we're necessarily very good at that, humans, just generally speaking. We take everything for granted. And it's very evident that we take things for granted when someone treats us politely over time. And our expectations can change because of that. If we just expect everyone to treat us politely, sometimes we will use that as a license to not be polite ourselves. If you're with someone who treats you politely, man, you better cherish that. Learn how to cherish that. Practice. I say that a lot, don't I? Practice reciprocating being nice. Practice being slow to anger. Learn how to be appreciative. Humble yourselves.
This video is going to be so choppy. It's over the course. I just got attacked by a leaf. This video was made over the course of like 4 or 5 different days over 3 weeks. And in the course of those 3 weeks, the weather has changed dramatically. So there's going to be inconsistencies in the weather. Initially, I tried to dress the same because I wanted to conceal that, but I can't. Was I trying to cheat you? No, I was wanting it to look. I was going for video quality, people. But it has grown mighty dreary out today. I had this video done, and I deleted the first half of it. I'm an idiot. So I've made actually like 3 or 4 fires, and today was the first time that I actually needed to make a fire because it is chilly. It's probably 38 degrees out right now and rainy. Brr. But I like this cold weather. It reminds me that I'm alive. One of the things I like about cold weather, and I just got like short sleeves on and like a hoodie. When the wind blows, it's cold. And one of the things I like to do, like even in the snow, is suffer a little bit. I think suffering is important to talk about. I like to come up here and build a fire or any place in these mountains because I have all kinds of places in these mountains that I go to camp. But when it's really cold out, I like to build a fire and try to stay warm with just like long sleeves on or something and minimal gear, because like you don't feel more alive than that. In other words, the willingness to suffer just a little bit to see what you can stand is important. I think men probably care more about this than women, typically. But suffering is just as important to recognize, regardless of if you're a man or a woman. Why? Because suffering is inevitable, and the way that we deal with suffering and our willingness to suffer is important. This is easily seen in that when you find yourself in an unfavorable emotional situation, like that's genuine suffering, man. Like it's easy to call that torturous. And we have to think about what we can, or like it becomes the dilemma of what we can endure, right? Like emotional pain is absolutely as devastating as physical pain. And some people aren't willing to bear it. They think that they can't, and they will go to tragic lengths to not bear it any longer. But given that suffering exists, and we're all kind of bound by its inevitability, whether it is cheating or not, or bad relationships or whatever, like loss, like there's all kinds of reasons that we will be emotionally devastated. How do we react as a consequence to it? I think people are much stronger than they think that they are. And like I really believe that. Some people have the proclivity to be strong, or at least appear strong, through unbelievable circumstances. And some people will be devastated at not being able to... I got in this long conversation back when I was in college a long time ago with my roommate. He was like, why can they go to war? Why can they endure like the worst, most unimaginable things and seem almost unscathed. And then some people freak out and find it unmanageable if they can't find the right clothes to wear. And this isn't like a jab at men or women, because it doesn't matter what sex you are. I think both of them go through this. And it was a very interesting question. It made me think of the monks. You know, the monks will... Let me show you what they do. Monks will hit bricks. And they do this over long periods of time, decades, to callus their knuckles. What do calluses do? I won't bore you with all like the keratin physiology. But the idea of a callus is that it is a growth that, as a consequence of as a consequence of enduring something. There's a growth, and that growth is stronger than what was there previously. And it numbs the experience. So over a long period of time, their knuckles have these huge calluses, and when they punch things, they don't feel as bad. Like their skin is tougher, right? I think the same thing can be applied to us psychologically. If we endure things and have the willingness to endure things, and we practice enduring things, like when I come up here and I'm cold around a fire and I purposefully stay cold, it's wanting to see what I can endure. It's not for any belief that I need to be punished. I need to punish myself. It's rather just to see if I can do it. Because I think we need to test ourselves. We need to see what we can withstand. Because there will be a time in life where we need to withstand things that are uncomfortable. I think if we emotionally callous ourselves, some would say that emotionally callousing ourselves is dampening our emotions, and that is a hindrance to all these psychological things like being accepted and so on and so forth, being distant from people, blah, 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 blah. On the other hand, I think that it's just as important to recognize that when we allow ourselves to be a little bit callous, that as a consequence we grow tougher. We grow stronger. We're capable of enduring things that we didn't think we could endure. And over time that becomes easier. When things become easier, that's strength. That's another reason that I say practice things. I don't want you to think that I'm just minimizing difficulty. Like, you say to practice this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm probably telling you this because you've not heard it before. Like, no one has ever told you to practice something. And I'm not saying your way of being is wrong or is bad or is unethical or whatever. All I'm saying is that if you're wanting to overcome something and you find yourself incapable of overcoming it or believe yourself incapable as such, then you need to probably practice a way that's going to give you that capacity. And you don't know how to do it, and I've talked about associations and ways to walk in to associations, or maybe think critically about the way you've associated things so that you can break those associations, or numb yourself to those associations, or think differently about them. Practice the belief that you have about them. All these things are crucial in overcoming the obstacle, the psychological obstacle that you're hoping to overcome. And suffering, even if a little bit on purpose, because suffering requires patience. It's patience with the self, It's an exercise of endurance. These qualities are important. Like, it's a willingness to endure something that is not happy, that doesn't feel good in the moment. I'm sure the monks probably don't. Maybe they do, I don't know. I'm not a monk, obviously. But I bet the monks probably don't think it's the most exciting thing to hurt themselves. Without the willingness to suffer a little bit for the ends that we hope to obtain, we have to say that, well, we may not want the ends, because that journey is just way too uncomfortable. And I don't like being uncomfortable, so I'm not going to do it. And guess what? You don't get what you want. Look at this. This is like 3 hours in. And I haven't touched it. I'm just let it burn. But let me show you something. Just walking over here and seeing what I can find, and I see some just random tree limbs. We're going to call this rubble. There's a point to this, by the way. We walk back to the fire that is almost gone out. And then we place the rubble in the fire. Put the rubble in the fire. So, as we can see, it just kind of caught flame again. Sometimes in our life, especially in relationships, we have to be willing to pick up the rubble so that we can reignite aspects that we'd previously given up on. This won't work if we're not willing to pick up the rubble, though. Nothing changes. I made this video in hopes to shine light on relationships. This fire is emblematic of what patience, tenacity, and diligence and planning can do. It's not about immediate gratification. It's about wanting to make things last. If you look to the future, if someone wants a future with somebody else, they want the thing to last. Hopefully they don't want just something that's going to burn out. There are those kinds of people, though, who just don't care. They want something fun, and that's it. Fun is not a good indicator of success in either relationships or work or I'm not suggesting that you should be miserable. What I'm saying is that there's all kinds of fun things that will not lead to long-term, at least good long-term stuff. Like, I'm sure it would be great to get high and do cocaine off a stripper's butt, but that doesn't mean that it's good. Like, there's things in life that are more important than fun. And if things are not intrinsically good, we probably shouldn't devote a lot of time to them, if any. Like, it's more optimal for us to consider things, or the longevity of things. Like, if our behaviors are indicative of something that is just interim or short term, that doesn't really include longevity. Like, maybe it's a goal. Speaking of goals, If things are not lasting, if my goal is to be sober, or if my goal is to make my relationship last, I need to make a goal on how to make that work. And if I fail, it's optimal for me and more wise of me to make a goal on how to obtain my goal. I need to have obtainable goals, and I need to think, even if it requires help, I need to make sure that those things work. If you want something to work, you will find a way to make it work. That's for the good or bad, because sometimes we find ways to do evil things. In any case, I wanted to make this video for people who are struggling, who have struggled, who maybe need a little bit of hope and reassurance that their life is not going to be a complete calamity, that everything is going to go either right or wrong, but that that's not going to exist without purpose, without sacrifice. But it doesn't mean that just because it requires sacrifice that things are going to be bad. It's easy to be hopeless or think things are meaningless or nihilistic. Just because things are hard doesn't mean that it's not worth it. Relationships are the same way. But if you plan and you really desire longevity, and you're willing to reciprocate your desires for longevity and genuine care and willing to make sacrifices, if the person that you've chosen to dedicate your life to is willing to be the servant that you're willing to be for them, reciprocity comes easy. There won't be fights over, can I do this, can I do that? There won't be quarrels and arguments. There won't be fingers pointed. There won't be stupid, meaningless conflicts. Any conflicts that arise will be undergirded with compassion and patience. They will stem and be undergirded by believing I know you want the best for me, and you knowing I want the best for you. When relationships are beholden to that, it makes conflicts exponentially easier. But without the desire for that, they can easily be corrupted. Low self-esteem, opportunism, boredom, apathy. Hopefully not, but sometimes even vengeance. Like, these things are bad. They don't stem from good places. They don't come from a place of care and devotion and the hope of longevity or the desire for longevity. I hope you found this video meaningful. I hope that it is not emblematic of something you've experienced. But if you have, know that you're not alone. I wish the best for you and your family. God bless, guys. Although we've come to the end of the road, still I can't let go. And it's very, very difficult for the spouse who is cheated on to get out of this. To say that it's very difficult for the child. Beaver tits.